Good morning, New Zealand. It is Wednesday morning, August the 20th. I was chuckling because I was just having a look at the comments and somebody said, "Good morning, Simon." And somebody else said, "No, it's not Simon, it's Bob." Yeah, so sorry, it is Bob. But anyway, this is Daybreak. Good morning. Yeah, here we go. And the schools are on strike today. So if the traffic is light wherever you are, well, now you know why. And if the queue's slightly longer at the cafe for your coffee, now you know why as well. All the kids are off school and the teachers are off school. So that's secondary school only. All right, let's have a look at some of the stories that are making the rounds. And yep, Cambridge Dictionary has decided to update their dictionary. They have introduced some new words: skibbity, daylulu, and tradwife. I'll come back to the tradwife one. Skibbity apparently is a gibberish term coined by the creator of an animated YouTube series and can mean cool, but can also mean bad, or used with no real meaning. So in other words, a dumb word, skibbity dibbity doo, or something like that. Daylulu is a shortening of the word delusional. That means believing things that are not real or true, usually because you choose to. Daylulu. Okay, another dumb word. But this is the one that I'm really interested in, is tradwife. And tradwife, yes, they have changed the dictionary definition, or not changed it, introduced it. It's a married woman, especially one who posts on social media, who stays at home doing cooking, cleaning, and has children that she takes care of. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Now, whenever we talk about tradwife, of course, that's the cue for me to play my favourite ever video. And this was the documentary that TV1 played a couple of years ago where they talked about disinformation and the source of the disinformation. And it was all down to tradwives. Do you remember this clip?
Want to make jelly on a budget? Grab some of my lunch. You can draw people in lots of different places. And each of the platforms are used in different ways.
Hello, friends. As you can see, I'm working on my would-be bag.
What is known internationally as the kind of tradwife set of viewpoints, which is white, Christian, a lot of pseudo-Celtic, pseudo-Nordic ideologies behind it.
Christian.
They use Pinterest and Instagram to draw in other women who are interested in interior design, children's clothing, knitting, healthy food for children.
Healthy.
And it does draw people in towards a set of white nationalist ideas. I mean, it's relatively easy to see. If you see a very beautiful, fair-skinned, blonde or red-haired child with beautiful braiding in her hair and some flowers, just step back a little bit.
Just step back. Okay, you've had your warning, tradwives and trad husbands. Oh, actually, is there such a thing as a trad husband? Okay, well, we'll check that out. Anyway, that's our Stupidsville section of the program this morning. Article yesterday in the, was this Radio New Zealand? What will encourage New Zealanders to have more babies? The fertility rates came out again yesterday, the updated stats, basically how many children are we having in New Zealand. The replacement rate is 2.2 to replace our population. So on average, women need to be having 2.2. And oh, by the way, only women can have children. 2.2. So that's 2, which is 1 for mum, 1 for dad, and 0.2, which takes into account those who are unable who don't have children. 2.2. We're currently sitting on 1.5, and I think it just went up 1.55, and it just went up to 1.57. So basically, no improvement at all. And they're saying what will encourage New Zealanders to have more babies? And my one-word answer was, well, marriage. Actually, if we encourage marriage and stability, we're more likely to see the fertility rate increase. And then, of course, that can be supported by the government. Hungary did it very well. They had a terrible fertility rate, and then they encouraged families to have children. They gave tax breaks. They gave even... if you had enough children, you got a people mover vehicle. There was tax-free status for the mum. There was the ability for grandparents to care for the grandchildren. It was just a great policy and it worked. So, it may not be as tricky as they're making it out to be. This was a very disturbing case at the beginning of the week, and there was a lot of chatter. Although the interesting thing about this, so a member of a wealthy family was guilty. There was so much wrong in this case. There was almost 12,000 objectionable files. I know young kids may be listening at the moment, so I'll be careful how I say this. But basically, there was abuse of very young children. Some of it was described as sadistic by the judge, torture, physical abuse, bestiality. The wealthy family, they made a donation of $50,000 to a charity, or two charities. Yeah, pitiful amount if you're a very wealthy family, isn't it? And despite the number of victims, because remember, every one of those images involves a victim, the starting point by the judge was 5.5 years, and then the person got a 56% discount. 56% and name suppression. And so ended up with 2 years, 5 months imprisonment, despite almost 12,000 objectionable files. It's just an example of a justice system gone very badly wrong. But here's the interesting thing. You may not have even heard of this case. The NBR reported it, National Business Review, which is not exactly your crime-fighting newspaper, is it? It's the National Business Review. But I haven't seen barely any media coverage. The platform covered it. Sean Plunkett was talking about it. But the rest of the legacy media has been very quiet on this case. I'm wondering the connection. But anyway, that's just my theory. Here's a really offensive photo. This grandmother stood outside a hospital that offers abortions, and that's a terribly offensive sign, isn't it? Coercion is a crime. Here to talk, only if you want. This is in the UK. Now, the reason that I find this ironic is because in the J.D. Vance was recently in the in the UK. And remember, J.D. Vance said that free speech is at risk in the UK. And the Brits got very upset about this. And just last week, the media were laughing because all these protesters turned up to see J.D. Vance in the UK to say, no, there is free speech here. At the same time, there is this case and many other cases going on where free speech is being shut down in the UK. And this was a 75-year-old woman, Scottish woman, arrested outside Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow. And it's because she's in the so-called buffer zone, which is basically to ram down that abortions must be allowed and you can't talk to people when they're going to have an abortion because they might change their mind. And as you can see, this sign is actually preventing crimes because it's identifying whether the abortion is happening because of pressure from the boyfriend, for example. Coercion is a crime. Here to talk only if you want. But she was going to be prosecuted, but the police have dropped the prosecution, mainly because of the worldwide coverage of this. It's a good decision, but it is a reminder of just how bad things in the UK, although things aren't that much better in Australia. Moira Deeming, who's it's got some New Zealand roots, actually. I want to get her to New Zealand some stage to speak. And she is a MP in Victoria. I mean, you know, the state of Victoria, it's in a bad state. But she went to the Posey Parker rally, and as a result, that Posey Parker rally where they talked about what a real woman is, the real meaning of a woman, and some Nazi protesters turned up, and so she was lumped in with them by the media, and so the leader of her party, the guy on the right there, basically suspended her, I think. The party bailed him out as part of the defamation case that Moira Deeming brought. But here's the ironic thing. The Liberals in Victoria decided to hold a special meeting, a special function to recognise women in the Liberal Party. They can't even define what a woman is in the Liberal Party. But anyway, that was part of it. The other thing is that they also can't define a dude. And remember on Monday, I told you about the women's soccer team in Australia that has 5 dudes in it wanting to be women. And here's some more photos. I mean, if you squint really hardly, maybe you can persuade yourself that that's a woman on the left there. But this is the one that Kirrily Smith spoke up about. And I spoke about Kirrily on Monday. She's speaking at our conference next Thursday night. She's giving her talk, and then Friday she'll be part of the Q&A panel. So if you haven't registered yet, I'll give you the details for that very shortly. forumonthefamily.nz. I saw this one. The media are working hard on Nicola Willis being the next MP, the Prime Minister. Yeah, they don't like Christopher Luxon. We all know that. The media's clear on that. But Nicola Willis is the one that are they promoting her? I mean, in my view, given the chaos of the economy at the moment and the fact that Nicola Willis is spending as freely as Grant Robertson was, the previous Minister of Finance, is she the best option that the National Party can put up? Or do they really want to be on the opposition benches? Anyway, that's just my view. I'll be interested to hear yours. The Ministry of Health have been forced to release documents, and they actually show that the alcohol lobby are having a huge influence on our alcohol laws. Apparently, alcohol lobbyists pushed health officials not to raise taxes, not to curb supply, or not to cut industry sponsorship of sport, and also tried to undermine a government strategy around fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And Health Coalition Aotearoa basically said, well, the alcohol lobby should not have any role in shaping alcohol policy. And yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's disturbing. Credit to Guy and Espiner. He is on a bit of a campaign on this, showing the influence of the alcohol industry when it comes to alcohol in New Zealand. Interestingly, I saw this article yesterday in the US where it said that the US drinking rate hits an all-time low, and it's primarily the female, but also male. And apparently the amount of, and it's based around people understanding the health harms associated with alcohol. Now, is this the case in New Zealand? I did find this article from December where it said, this is Radio New Zealand, Gen Z drinking alcohol less or not at all. But it's not only Gen Z, it's actually across the age brackets that we are drinking alcohol less in general. And when people do drink, they're also not drinking to excess. And that has got to be a good thing. This was on Stuff Today. A disturbing case about an assisted dying patient, so in other words, someone being euthanized, not being properly sedated before they died. And complaints have been made to the health authorities, and the doctor involved in the case has been referred to the medical council. Patients who get euthanasia in New Zealand are sedated, or they're supposed to be sedated, before having medications administered. So that's a disturbing case, but here's the interesting thing, and it's very interesting timing because later today, our Family Matters episode is dropping, and it's this. Simon is talking with Sharon Quick, MD, who is an expert in this whole euthanasia issue, and she talks about what actually happens when euthanasia drugs are used. Not to over-egg it, but it's actually quite disturbing. So watch out for that. That will drop today. What euthanasia drugs really do. Sharon Quick, MD, I actually met her in Indianapolis at the conference a couple of weeks ago that I was at, and Simon has done the superb interview with her. So watch out for Family Matters because that is very relevant. All right, just a couple of other quick news items. I see Netanyahu has written to Albanese, Australia Prime Minister, accusing him of being weak and pouring fuel on the anti-Semitic fire. He said history will remember Albanese for what he is, a weak politician who betrayed Israel and abandoned Australia's Jews. This is around the whole issue of allowing a Palestinian state and rewarding Hamas and terrorism. My question is just, do you think Luxon might be getting a letter as well? Anyway, we will watch this space. And one other article that I saw was this one. It's not the article so much. Hookup culture versus boys sober, what young New Zealand women want. Well, you know what they want. They want relationship. They want respect. They wanted to be treated with dignity. You don't need to read the article to figure out that. But you know that in our current culture at the moment, there is this hookup culture. But it's not so much the article that I was interested in, but it's the statement at the very end. Let me show you it. It says this. It talks about what about marriage and is that a protective factor? And look at this last statement. It says marriage is really good for the kids and bringing up a family, correct? But then it says it's also very trapping for a woman in a marriage. And studies have shown that the most dangerous man in a woman's life is her husband. Yeah, really? Now, you'll notice there's a hyperlink where you can go through to where that statement came from. So I clicked on that and got led through to The Guardian. Yeah, you know that fiction newspaper, rabid left-wing The Guardian, who had an article which says home is the most dangerous place for women, says global femicide report. So, you know what I'm like. I thought I'm digging deeper here, so I went to the report. And it's by the UN, and I actually did a word search on the word marriage, married, husband, wife. Guess how many times those words were in the document? Yeah, you probably didn't need to guess. Marriage and married wasn't mentioned at all. I think the word wife might have been once. Husband wasn't mentioned. And so basically it's talking about, for example, live-in boyfriends and de facto. And the lacking the stability of marriage. In fact, when the Families Commission were around in New Zealand, it's hard to find any reports on this about the protective factor of marriage with domestic violence in New Zealand. The government just doesn't want to talk about marriage. The only time they talk about marriage is when they want to redefine it. But back in 2007, they did examine this. The Families Commission did. You remember the Families Commission who couldn't define what a family is? And they put out this report and they looked at victims of domestic violence. And let me just enlarge it to you, the circled bit. This is the victims, and they looked at the marital status. Look at that. Legally married, the safest place compared to de facto, single, never married, separated. Yeah, legally married, safest placed. And then, so yeah, that goes totally against the narrative that Radio New Zealand are pushing in this dumb article. And then I looked at child abuse as well. Once again, this was in the UK, and the massive risk factor on the left is mum with the live-in boyfriend. A child is hugely at risk of child abuse. That little speck on the bottom far right is where the child is living with their married biological parents. So this statement in this dumb article on Radio New Zealand is a complete myth. And yeah, always good for us to call out stupidity, especially on Radio New Zealand's website. All right, just before I go, one quick plug because you've only got till Sunday to register.
Hey guys, I'm Israel Folau.
And I'm Maria Folau.
And we're looking forward to sharing our story with you at the upcoming forum on the family in August.
It'll be the first time that we share our side of the story with you in New Zealand. We're excited to tell you about our experience, how much it has strengthened our faith, our marriage, and we hope that you feel very encouraged by it. We'll do an interview with Bob, and we hope you enjoy it.
Yep, and we've done that interview. It is ready to go. It is powerful. You will love it. Exclusive. First time ever that they have told their story. And you get to hear it next Friday at the Forum on the Family. Not this Friday, the following Friday, but registrations close this Sunday. So you need to register. forumonthefamily.nz. Other great speakers, Amanda Ackman will be talking about the euthanasia issue. Dawn Hawkins from Nkosi will be talking about sexual exploitation, prostitution, age verification on websites, on social media, etc., which is very relevant at the moment. Dr. Miriam Grossman on the trans agenda and how to push back. We've got Jeff Johnson from Focus on the Family. talking about the LGBT agenda, how to push back with grace and love, but with truth as well. And Kirralie Smith from Australia. And of course, Kirralie Smith has just come out of that court case where she's been told off for using violence, for using naughty words on Twitter. Yes, hurty feeling words on Twitter. Australia has called that violence. But then again, they can't define woman, so no surprise they can't define violence either. Probably the same case in New Zealand. All right, that's it for today. Sorry, I can't grab all the comments. We're out of time, but I will have a read through them. Always nice to hear what you're saying and getting your feedback. And we will see you Friday morning again. Don't forget Simon will be here tomorrow morning. Simon will be here tomorrow morning at 7:30 for Solid Ground. Until then, have a great day.